Hi, Sammy.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, it's so good to be back. And it looks like you guys had a blast last week.
We did have a really good time. I kind of went like full nerd for a while. I know it was so great to have Joni for a lot of reasons. One of them being somebody that having her be here as somebody who's been practicing in the leadership field in our industry in areas that like I've never been in, which helps me so much understand where I'm not asking questions. Like, it was so much fun to just be like, okay, Joni, like, I don't know if you caught the whole thing, but there was literally a point where I was like, all right, so let's just ask AI what it thinks really quick. And then from there, we didn't even use anything it gave us there because it was like, okay, I hear you saying this thing. And then we went down this whole other rabbit train. We got so excited about it that I was like, I don't know what Tim thinks about it, but we're going to do just a part 2 of this episode next week. So that's what we did. It was so much fun. And I know you've had the pleasure of like knowing Joni for a lot longer, of course. So for me, it's also a chance to get to know her and like just see all the things that she's got to offer the field. So it was super fun, and I'm excited to show you kind of what we built and what we're building and what it ends up being. So yeah. How was your week? What did you do? Where were you at? Tell the people.
I was speaking in last week. I was in Missoula. The week before, I was in Billings. Last week, I was in Missoula. And then next week, I'm going to be in Poland.
Missoula is in Montana, for those of you that aren't as familiar.
Exactly. Missoula and Billings, Montana. Next week in Poland, but I'm still going to call in, I think. So I will see you there. So that'll be fun.
Poland? Like the country?
Warsaw. Yeah, I've never been.
What are you doing?
I'm leading a training with Samir Vazda from Dev Design. So this is his thing, and I'm playing backup to him, doing the automations piece of that, and then just helping out in the audience for the 3 days that we're doing it. So it's gonna be great. I'm really excited about it. And if you're not following Samir, like, he's really interesting. I love the work that he's done. He did work for the UN before, was at Meta, started his own thing, and does a lot with the Climate Collective. So really, really interesting background and really, really fun trainer. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Okay, love. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that was it. That's where I was last week. Oh, no, wait. I was teaching a group of hotel managers and owners how to create a concierge GPT, and that was wild. Really, really interesting. So, doing a
concierge GPT. Maybe that's a future AI for anyone episode. That's fun.
It was an industry specific custom GPT that would generally work almost anywhere. Like, the core idea of it would work almost anywhere. So yeah, that would actually be kind of an interesting thing to tease out here at some point. So
okay, that's awesome.
Yeah. You could also do it with a gem. I mean, that would be just
that's exactly what I was thinking. I'm so excited. So backstage we have Joni. I'm gonna bring her forward here in just a moment. So excited to have her back. I have a feeling she'll be a reoccurring guest host, just like Dan has been, which always shout out, and he loves when I do it, right?
There it is.
He hates when I do that so much. I am officially like finding them on my algorithm too, just like different things like that. And so I keep sending them to you and Dan.
Oh my gosh.
Waiting for them to yell at me.
It is very fun. I'm so glad, like, your personality comes shining through, and it is great. So I love that.
I mean, how do you not get this? Like, I wander around at conferences and I'll just shoot it off in the middle of and if they're not paying attention during a session, they start, which is super funny.
That is awesome.
But I do want to say first, I kind of want to just like level set for you. I know you weren't there last week. I know some folks are joining us who haven't been to AI4AnyoneLIVE ever, let alone last week. So a couple little housekeeping things. Number one, I am Sami Zoss. I am one of the co-hosts of your weekly live show here, AI4AnyoneLIVE, presented by the Human Stack. And of course, as always, I have joining me Tim Lockie, who is the CEO and chief nerd over there at the Human Stack as well. So ever interested in learning more about the Human Stack, we've got some links for you. You're probably finding us through some avenue in which is linked back to the Human Stack. We like to make tech more human, so we have a lot of fun doing that. We've got a blog to highlight for you today. But really quick, I just want to give a quick preview of what we're going to cover today. And actually, what those of you that don't know is Tim gave me a really good like framework for how to frame what we're going to learn today conversation. And so I'm really liking it as I'm looking at it. So you're going to kind of hear a little bit of that, Tim, being like, oh no, I really love the language, the phrasing here. So last week Joni sort of showed us what nonprofit leaders often hit as barriers, which is that they're serving populations they don't share lived experiences with. Last week we talked a lot about some of the work that she did, and so I'm excited to continue to show some of that. We've also got some additional use cases. Great example of how relevant this is in some of the work that we do, though. I work with we work with Camp Gilbert, who serves kids with type 1 diabetes. I am not a child. I do not have type 1 diabetes. I don't have I'm not even in the medical field. I'm solely there to be sort of like the engager with that group. And there's plenty of times that I don't even think through because I don't have that lived experience to know. And I've been doing this for 15 years and I still don't have that lived experience to know, oh, I should, do this thing differently, et cetera. And so this framework that we started with last week, based on just really like a conversation around barriers as a nonprofit leader, I'm really excited to finish it. We got through the first couple phases. We'll re-go over it, but just kind of wanted to frame that for you and everyone listening at home. But before we get into it, Tim, I would love if you could highlight your latest blog post here.
Oh, yeah. Before we move on to that, can you hop back to the other thing? I want to say one more thing before I go to the blog post, which is as I was going through listening to you in the green room and thinking through one thing that strikes me that your content last week touched on is that we're going to have to, as a society, get better at knowing what matters to other people quickly. And this is underneath what you're talking about today is how do you avoid the risk of being irrelevant to the people that you serve, the audiences that you speak to. And AI can offer you a lot of support in helping frame out some insider, subject matter expertise that you can better understand that with. That does not replace experience, but it can give you a lot of this. And I want to just say, in the last few weeks, I've started speaking in areas that I don't have any domain expertise in, like, city council conferences. I don't know anything about running cities. Hotel conferences, I don't know anything about running hotels. I was doing stuff with a group of CTO.
If I were saying those things, you would be giving me such eye rolls right now. Knock it off.
Absolutely. And in every case, what I'm doing is exactly what you and Joni are talking about is how do you understand an audience using AI? What are the questions you ask? How do you create? And so I'm really excited about the framework that you guys created because this is such an important problem to, not problem, but this is a new benefit of AI that is largely unexplored. So love it. Really glad we're talking about that. Okay. I
appreciate that. I'm going to let you talk about the blog really quick. I'm going to turn on my overhead lights so you can see me a little bit better while you do that.
Okay, cool. Great. So this is a blog post on Notebook LM. I'm really excited about what you can do with Notebook LM. And a lot of the new functionality, I think the real gem in it is its ability to create videos and especially video soundtracks. And this is just something I struggle with. I do a lot of video work. Getting a soundtrack that works quickly is a real challenge for me. And I think a lot of other people too. So I just put a blog post out showing people how you can create a relevant video for really small focused things like a conference schedule that you want to send out to people so that they've got a little bit of a heads up on what your conference is. I showed another group how to take one of their legislative advocate agendas and list that out in a short video that people can listen to and understand in less than 2 minutes. So this kind of ability to use video to create relevant, specific information rapidly that people can consume in an audio and visual way is really new and very, very helpful. So that's the post on there. If you're part of the Upskillerator, you already saw the first part of this. And today we're going to cover the second half, which is uploading it to Descript and starting to take the core video and expand it a little bit. So that's what we're up to.
I love it. No, that's so cool. And it's funny, we mention him, I feel like every other episode, but Nate Jones, his Substack literally this morning was about how he did a really good job, actually, if I have a quick aside here, of differentiating really good tools for retrieval augmented generation, which is like the knowledge-based retrieval, and then generative AI, sort of like generating from the world's skill set. And I, again, as someone who works in this every day, hadn't heard it quite that succinctly. And I love it because, I mean, Nate's also sitting there like us, right? Where he's just like on his,
Right.
on it at his desk, like just being like, I don't know why people aren't looking at this stuff.
Scruffy and a beanie, right? Like,
I love it so much.
Yeah,
is that
totally.
why you're wearing the beanie today? Is that what that is?
No, it's just, it's October in Montana. I feel like I have to.
I'm just giving you grief. But he talked about Notebook LM and how if people are wanting to be able to accurately retrieve information and use information at scale, like Notebook LM, I think he literally says like we've been sleeping on Notebook LM. So I would highly suggest, I'm sure we have one of his QR codes around here somewhere. Yep. Always do. Because we're always talking about the stuff that he pops out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love that the blog post that you wrote today just happened to be the same thing. That's really cool. Before I get outshined and bring Joni on, I want to point out a couple of things. One, I got new computer glasses. This is one of 3 pairs that I've gotten, so TBD on which ones pop up throughout the episodes. Number 2, because it's Halloween, we've got our nice little skeleton Halloween little guy here. And then, of course, we've got our Halloween shirt for the day.
I feel like the Saturday Night Live Johnny S. Pumpkins just needs to come up.
Johnny S. Pumpkins?
Right.
Maybe when we're doing our Notebook LM and Upskillerator, maybe I'll try and do some Johnny S. Pumpkins mix up here because I agree.
Yeah, totally.
Without further ado, let's bring back the woman of the hour, Joni Wood Martin.
Hello.
And you can see why I needed to point out how awesome I am before Joni popped on, because I can't beat that.
Yeah, totally. I now wish that I just said, yeah, I'm Smee, right? I've got the hat for it and everything.
I love that.
Just an eye patch.
Joni, I can't take you seriously.
I know.
Hear how like exhausted she is in that too. She's like,
yes,
I can barely breathe. I'm like,
it does sound a little Darth Vader in there.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah,
really does.
I like how great.
That's
but you're not going to wear that the whole time. Okay, for those of you who have not met Joni, let me introduce.
Please do. That's exactly what I was going to ask.
A friend and
the Tim story.
Right. Yeah. Back
It's
in 2013, when I was just launching my first business, and I had hired a COO who was doing a lot on delivery. The COO came to me and said, "All right, I've got the person that we need next." And so we met Joni, and Joni was a rock star in the Salesforce space, started something called Girl Force, which later became Amplify and its own 501c3 to help women certify in Salesforce and basically upskill. It was like the pre-upskillerator. And it was wildly successful, one of the best communities in the salesforce.org ecosystem, and really, really powerful. So I'm so excited to have you back, Joni, and I'm really excited to have you on AI4AnyoneLIVE, because you were the host of the very first podcast that I ever did called Cloud TNT with Tracy Kronzak. So it feels like full circle moment.
It does. It does.
You know what's really funny? So Joni and I very early on realized that we are both the same when it comes to how we handle Tim. But what I didn't realize, was that with both of us in the room and it being live, I was expecting her to totally like razz you for a second. And she goes, yeah, thanks. To be fair, you were also just like giving her a lot of really good compliments. And so, but like those are kind of the
That's
most fun
true.
times to also razz Tim. But yes, I will say I was super nervous last week when Tim messaged essentially like 20 minutes before AI for Anyone Live and was like, hey, SOS, I'm not going to be there.
It's like 23 minutes.
Sure.
And your
Whatever
reply
you
was,
say.
"Are you joking?"
I thought he was totally pulling my chain because I was like,
that is something I might
100% it would.
But no, I was in full on panic mode before speaking. So yeah.
But I think, Tim, one thing that I just discovered, and I know we've talked about the episode, but I'm so interested in your thoughts after you're able to go rewatch it and after you're able to experience it now without having watched it in full, like we kind of wanted you to do it that way, because I talked to, like, we do highs and lows or like our wins or fails in the Upskillerator, and both are good things, but just sort of like how you used AI for the week. And I just could not stop talking about the episode that we'd had. And like, it created such a fun opportunity to just do in a way that is like, all right, end user, you're here with me. Let's talk about your issues and problem solve together. And it showed a few things. I think it showed something that we're constantly trying to talk about, which is you can't take the human out of this because humans aren't making or robots aren't making the connections that we are, even if they're trained to try to do it that way. Joni and I went a completely different way than our first entire conversation with AI. But without that conversation, we wouldn't have been able to get down the whole rabbit hole that we did. And we built, I mean, it literally, today we're finishing out, you said it, out we've called it the AI assisted impact alignment framework, right? And my goal is that by the end of the episode, at minimum, we've all got instructions for, and I'll be able to share it because we can share these now. We've got a nonprofit impact alignment gem specific to the impact that you want to gear it toward. Like, that's crazy. And that's not something you and I have talked about recently. Like, we talk about it in philosophical terms, or like when we're applying other areas of what we do. But to be able to be like, okay, I've got an empty slate today and I don't have I've got 20 minutes. There's not a plan I can create in that time that I'm going to do to perfection. So let's just start a good conversation and see where it goes. It was like I talked about it all last week. I was so excited about like what we covered and how we were able to show use case in a way that didn't involve all the big like fancy bells and whistles. You could have done what we did in any tool. And like, it was just cool. I don't need to go down
one of
to
the
like
things
diatribe there,
you're
but
raising here is you'll never, like, the key to AI performance will always be how you engage it and how you bring questions to it, right? So when people bring bad questions, they get bad outputs, right? And
yes.
there's a lot to which tool are you using, which model are you using, those things matter. But fundamentally, the core issue is knowing what you want out of it. And if you don't know, knowing how to ask for what you're trying to figure out that you want. And so, getting meta or even meta is actually really important. Joni, how would you describe the episode from last week? Like, what's your take on it? Why was it powerful?
I think I've been a user of AI for a bit, but definitely not a power user, and mostly just kind of trying to increase my capacity by using AI for drafting emails and drafting assessments and things like that. And I think the first thing I got out of it was really like, wow, like sort of the sky's the limit for EDs, like I was at tiny nonprofits that are like responsible for all the things. And like we could really revolutionize our workload, but more than that, we can revolutionize the way that we're delivering services is kind of where my mind went with it. Because one of the things that's super challenging is, as a nonprofit leader, you are constantly building data sets to match external requirements, but those external requirements are not the requirements of the community that you are serving. It's the community of funders that's giving you money to serve your community. And in those smaller nonprofits, like, often I found that I'm tracking data that doesn't actually matter to my mission. Like, what it matters to is my funding requirement. And I thought, I was talking to Sami, she sort of opened my mind to think about, okay, like, what does it look like if I'm able to kind of pivot my programs to match the cultural context of folks that I'm serving? So like at my last nonprofit, Strongwater, we had an equine therapy program, and it was based in the East Coast. It was primarily white, middle class kind of folks that were coming through our doors, and they had a variety of challenges. And then at one point, I had met the director of the Native American Indian Center of Boston and proposed a program with her, co-building a program together. And that was the moment that I was like struck by. I have spent 30 years in human services building and delivering programs, and I have never come into a situation where my evidence base does not align with the cultural expectations and outcomes of the people that I'm serving. And so I was like, well, we want to do a youth program and we want to do this, that, and the other. And she's like, hey, like, first of all, that doesn't align with our culture. Like, we do multi-generational programs. And I was like, oh, okay, if I got the people we're serving wrong, then how many other things have I gotten wrong here? And that was like the first thing that came to me when I was talking to Sami, was like, how could AI have shifted that for me, that conversation, like made me in a position where I was more prepared to pivot and address the needs of the actual community that I was serving rather than the evidence base of the funders.
Okay, so I like what you're saying there,
it lit
and
me up.
no, it is amazing. I want to say I am so glad I've been hanging out with Fundraising Effectiveness Project and people like Mallory Erickson, who have really shifted my perspective to say, actually, we serve more than one population, and there is an alignment issue often, right? And so in the social impact space, we are data stewards, and we are donation stewards, right? So we are stewarding an interaction and a flow. And you're exactly right. If we are not clear about needs of the community, then we will not be clear about how to find aligned funders around that. So I absolutely agree. This is one of the best ways to identify if there is an alignment problem with your funding. So absolutely. And there's a both and on that, which is, how do you understand the donors that are not like you, and how do you understand the participants who are not like you? So the Camp Gilbert case, how does Sami understand children with diabetes? And on the other side, how does Sami understand grant officers, philanthropy, or major donors, or even monthly donors? And those are all part of what makes social impact such a challenge, is that it's not a direct line like it is in the consumer side or the private sector. So I don't know if that makes sense or not. I think that's really helpful.
You know what's really funny is, so another organization we talk about a lot is Project Camp, not to be confused with Camp Gilbert.
Oh,
but they are, this is a really good example, Tim, and it's not one that I thought of when we were building this, which is sort of even when we're serving different constituencies, our donors are in fact a different constituency. So Project Camp, an emergency response organization based out of California, they provide pop-up day camps for kids within 48 hours of a natural disaster in the US.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Awesome organization. I love them to death. If we will work for them as long as they will have us, kind of deal. And it just gets my camp fill, right? their staff right now is really, really good at understanding the tonality of what the campers want. So like think through, like, these aren't little kids. These are the kids that are in the middle school age. Like they're obsessed with anime and things like I don't understand, right? But I'm constantly helping them with some of their fundraising materials, and I'm putting up some more, we would call it like kitschy or like cute. And because I'm thinking of the 65-year-old woman who is so grateful to support kids at camp at a time like this, they want to feel like the camp that they remember as a kid. And it's so funny because it took us as a team a really long time to get around to it. I didn't even make this connection until you were kind of talking through those two areas, Tim, because I was pushing forward with this idea that like, no, I was almost with this vein of like, this is best practice from a fundraising perspective, not from no, you're fundamentally not understanding that the message we deliver to our donors has to be different than the message you deliver to your campers, to your families. And like, of course that sounds like duh, but that includes things like your aesthetic, right? Having a little bit more cutesy for your donors who are skewing older and supporting what they see as camp is important to gear towards camp. When we're trying to get grant funding, our tonality, our lived experience, our relation has to be around emergency preparedness and emergency response. Because at front, we are an emergency response organization, but people are giving because we are a camp-based emergency response. So that was a little longer to get us there, but like, I could have saved us a lot of meetings if I would have thought of it the way that you just explained it, is really what I'm trying to say, because that has been a really difficult sort of like within a team even. And so what a great way to show your team, like think of the marketing teams who are coming from the perspective of brand reputation and things that are very valid, but you've got a CEO that's like, hey, I don't care if the blue looks exactly the way it needs to. This gives you like newer opportunities to explain and prepare, right? Like I'm trying to explain to a CEO who doesn't care about the blue hue being a little bit off, why that's important for our brand and ultimately our impact.
Right.
All a chance for you to like check that. Like, do we just add some blue hues? So anyway, it was really cool. Big love. And I'm excited to sort of like finish it out with you guys today.
Perfect.
I want to, so I'm going to share my screen here. And then with three of us, I want to double check and make sure that it's like it looks the way we want it to, kind of deal. But can you see my Gemini here? I believe.
Yeah, and you should zoom in a little bit though.
Yes, I will do that.
We got old eyes.
Oh, I'm going to put us at the bottom and then just get rid of, here we go. There we go. And then I'm going to make this much larger for what that's worth. And zoom in. Okay. Lovely. So, Tim, to give you the state of play here, this is when I was talking about we just started asking questions. I literally said, I'm sitting here with Joni, right? Like, this is where the conversation went. Then we ended up with, okay, we knew where we wanted to go. This is sort of what we talked through at the beginning of this episode, right? This is what we're trying to get through. How do we have a gut check that helps us make sure our programming is fitting the constituency it's meant to impact? From there is where we created what we're calling the AI-assisted impact alignment framework. And much of last week's episode, you'll see Joni and I, well, much of the last half of last week's episode, Joni and I are essentially, I just ask her, right? So I'll either put in the prompts almost as they are, or I will then also ask Joni to fill in some of the language here, right? So like, these are the example ones. Luckily, the example was very close to what we were using anyway. And so we ended up using this constituency and our AI ethics and learning program that we've built through Gemini over the course of 29 episodes, which is also wild to say out loud.
Whoa, that's crazy.
I know. 30 next week. Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway.
So essentially what you're doing, can I just like make sure that I'm tracking here? What you're doing here is saying, we want you to take this set of point of views and think about this topic from these point of views. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So to show you how we did it in practice, we ended up on phase 2 of 3 phases or of 4 phases that the alignment framework kind of gave us. So this is truly how we started, right? Like a really simple, not very complex prompt, which, Tim, to some of earlier comments that you've made previously, if you want a really complex, in-depth output in one, your prompt needs to be there. If you're willing to work with your AI a few iterations, you can then be more in that language learning model style of help me complete this task, you know?
It's so funny you say that. I was just coaching with Dana Snyder a week or so ago, and we got on the topic of simple, right? And the thing that I understand about making technology simple to use is that you increase the complexity enormously in order to create more simple more simple experiences. So if you want a simple experience, you have to have a really structured prompt. If you want to just iterate, that's fine, but the trade-off is that you're going to have to go some rounds, and you're not going to be as consistent as it's going to be. So all of those are trade-offs. I feel like people start to understand when they're using it. They don't always have the language for it. So if that's helpful, there it is.
Extremely helpful. I was on my phone, if that's what it looked like, because Tim texted me on August 6th and said, how did you make the Google form AI, or how did you make the Google form fast? And I replied AI ? And he goes, ask a basic prompt, get a basic answer. That's on me. I'm like, what a great example of how that is in real life. It's my favorite example to use, Tim, because we hear prompt and we think AI, and it's like, no, this is naturally how you respond in other areas of life. AI is just sort of following that with us.
Yeah.
But I think that's so funny. Plus, I would like to point out that Tim never responded after he said that's on me. So I have no idea what he wanted that day. But so yeah, so to talk you through where the framework's taking us, Tim and Joni, I am creating alongside this a document that tracks just what we're getting in output, so we can then use it at the end without needing to copy and paste. So for ease of time, I'm essentially pulling some of this over as we're building it. So just so you guys are aware when we get to that point. But Tim, the first thing it has us do in the phasing and in the framework, it just says like, find the information. Like, don't feed it anything about your program necessarily and what you're trying. Ask what you need to know about your organization, your programs, etc. So we went through, we did that. And then it said, okay, let's start to develop our bias checker language. And so that was where we landed last week. And this was where like having Joni's experience as that former executive serving a population like this that she also didn't relate to was really helpful, because she could help us check for like trigger words, keywords that are telling us this is actually doing what we want it to. So for example, and Joni, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is kind of a fun way that I've been able to learn through this process, which is the colonial assumption was a sort of like a key flag, and assuming this framework can address these intergenerational trauma. I heard you talk about that, how it's an intergenerational approach, not a single generation. Like, it felt really fun to see, oh, this is picking like, and I loved watching the light bulb from Joni being like, oh, this is catching exactly what I could have used all those years. Like, how fun. So these are this sort of like where we ended, because I asked it.
Before you move on from that, I think this is really important because Joni, I knew you when you're in your AI resistance phase. And one of the legitimate resistance pieces that you had on it was, I don't know what the sourcing for this is, right? And early I was really bad about that. But the second one was around bias and concerns about implicit bias and how things were trained. And like, absolutely, it got trained the way it got trained, which is on all of what could be digitized quickly and ingested quickly, right? So that is a reality. What I feel like this is important to point out is that using AI to find that bias and do something about it is a responsible use of AI. And I feel like what I keep hearing is there's bias, so I shouldn't use it. And I feel like that is missing the point. There's bias, so we should find it with a tool that's better at finding it than we are. So I love that I like that you're creating it this way. I think that's actually a really important way to understand ethical use and responsible use of AI.
Joni, I think if we were to revisit last week's episode, you'll hear me say that I bet you Tim would explain this better. And it's things like that I'm like, yeah, he just synthesizes that stuff so much better than I do. I'm the hype person. Like, I will show you all the things and I will find the most creative solutions. Promise, every day. But succinctly explaining the impact of that on your life is not my strong suit.
I feel like you just said really well that I'm good at mansplaining.
Yeah. Don't ever do that again. Yikes.
I think like from the perspective of decolonization, like I know there are nonprofits listening to this program who care deeply about the political process of decolonization and like what does it mean? And the honest truth is AI exists because of extraction. Like the training happened through extracting human knowledge at massive scale. The servers require mining, energy consumption, all of that. But the question I have is, can you use it to practice resistance against those systems? And to me, like using it like we're using it today for culturally informed program design is strategically using colonial tools for liberation work. So doesn't make it like two wrongs don't make a right or whatever, but it still gives you a different way to kind of see it as a sort of a ceremony partner in a way.
Ooh,
I think that's a similar issue that I hear from environmental organizations that are asking similar questions. Like, what's the appropriate use when we know that this is harmful to the environment? And when I talked with Anna Nesbitt-Lerner from the Climate Collective about this, she and I have a very similar perspective, which is, yes, it exists. It's the sunk cost of having it created and being here is now over, and we should be using it. It's like saying, don't use public transportation because it took a lot of energy and resources to make it. But the use of it is actually very inexpensive per person per route. I feel like that's a way to understand AI inferencing or prompting. So yeah, absolutely. And I think that applies across multiple areas of the social impact space.
So in an effort to make sure we get through the majority of this, no, it's okay. It was such a cool, I mean, I could talk about this for like 4 episodes, so it was fine.
Joni, had you ever done a chain of thought prompt before? Sorry,
probably not on our live. If that makes sense.
Definitely not on live.
So what this next phase is just trying to show us like how to be that skeptical stakeholder. So once you've created your program, then like a lot of times you'll also hear this as the devil's advocate, because when you're asking AI for feedback, it wants to give you feedback that it thinks you want, which almost always means it's going to give you biased feedback in that it'll say, wow, you're so amazing. Like a mutual friend of ours, every time I work with her, she's like, well, first chat told me I was amazing. Then I had to tell it to like yell at me. This is sort of that answer to that, right? So it's saying it gives you this sort of like example prompt based on the direction we're headed. And then I also love that it's like, here's a red team prompt, right? Like, what are we not seeing? And so while we were chatting, I added those prompts in. And what I love about the way we're doing this is I literally consider these prompts as it relates to the program in this conversation and answer each. So in an ideal world, I would make sure that all of the context is absolutely added at all times. But if you're sort of like that quick on the fly, I'm trying to do this chain of thinking prompting, it's better to do it than to overthink it and not do it, right? Like get yourself 80% of the way there. So Joni, as our expert here, let's talk through these guys really quickly. Role playing as a skeptical elder. So it tells us what its assumptions. We've already presented our AI ethics and learning program, which Tim, they do have access to the documents. We've logged those above. You've brought a lot of paper. That's really interesting. What I'm hearing is This is
love
true.
That just is cracking me up. Oh, that is great.
I love that it's getting at some feedback that you'd already gotten, right? Like the help our children. Like you can tell that it's getting to those same issue. Similarly, you know, you come from a world that took our land. Like this is I love the role play of like essentially a disgruntled end user, because a disgruntled and educated end user. So we're hearing the reasons. It's not just like disgruntled. It's here, like you took our land. Why? How is that ethical? How are you going to teach our children that made sense? You know, some of that stuff here, right? Love the, how is this not the boarding school? Because knowing, as I mentioned in South Dakota, these are targeted toward the South Dakota tribes, and there's some really interesting history there.
Right.
That is, and honestly, those are the exact questions that the executive director basically phrased to me of NACOP. She was like, hey, before I partner with you on this, here's my questions. And this could have had me like actually thinking through those things and how to respond before.
Oh, I love it. Well, and then here, so then in our second prompt is just like 10 ways it could cause harm, right? Mm-hmm. Ethical paternalism, waste critical resources, new form of dependency, deficit-based victim stereotype. You see why I was on fire?
No, it's so helpful. I love it. I feel like this is absolutely right. And no, you shouldn't trust people with this. This needs to be in an opal, because we are not consistent enough. Right. We're not consistent enough to do the full chain of thought prompt here. Mm-hmm. So we really like absolutely would need to build on the previous one in order to make the chain all the way through, which I just think is amazing. I think it's great.
So, okay. Last phase here is the post-launch, which is the AI as a feedback analyzer. So what it said was basically like, once your program's running, create a feedback loop. Like you must create a feedback loop. AI is incredibly powerful at processing the large amounts of qualitative data to find themes you might miss. So what we do, and I love that part of this framework, it gives like the what you do, how you use AI, and then here are some example prompts to do it. So what we do is we collect the real feedback. The nice part is we've collected fake feedback actually already from for this program, right? How we use AI. It gives some options or just a powerful LLM. And then I've copied in the 3 prompts here. I'm going to add from the drive a reminder that this is from this program, and go ahead and send that off. Go ahead, and I know you were trying to say something there, Tim. I cut you off so I could get that out.
No, I don't. I wasn't trying to say anything. This is great.
Oh, okay.
Keep going.
For context, I've reattached the feedback survey. Consider these prompts. So then this is our phase 4. As that's building, I'm going to pull this over into that document. So we've got this.
Megan, if you're listening, I would love to hear how
she had some killer feedback last week. Yeah.
How you could see this in the international work that you and Amina are doing. I think like this is such a powerful tool for not just persona identification, not just for, audience and stakeholder evaluation, but also cross culture. Right. And I'm always curious how language informs ideas. So I'd be so curious to know how this in a different language would create different outcomes because of the ways that people think through words and ideas. So I don't know. I feel like there's so much interesting work that could be done there. So yeah.
Oh God, yeah. No, I completely agree. So the last phase, when I entered it here, what it kind of gave is top 5 positive, top 5 negative themes, which I think is really helpful. I think we're building this in a way that is meant to be critical, which means we might not. You never get to the end if you're always critical. Like if you get in yourself into decision, analysis paralysis, that's not beneficial either. And so I love that it also is reminding us, like, find the positives in what you're trying to do. Here are the negative themes. And I love the fact that we had this content, because then I'm not building content based on the output I want from this. I built it for something completely different, which means it feels a lot more like content answers we would have gotten, right? And here is Megan's response. Oh my gosh, it almost asked me to add her to the block list here. She said, let's create a gem for this together because it's very multi-layered, different language. We could have our team translate and give feedback. That's a really good point. The end result is there a gap analysis? And for us, it says aspiration versus application, all things that we sort of like pre-predicted were going to be things, right? The aspiration is great, but the application is not there. That's so funny. Because these, like the folks that are taking this survey, like the backup of the companies and stuff, we didn't gear that toward a native community necessarily. So there's a little bit of miss here. But even the non-constituency focused responses actually align with the concerns we had based on a specific constituency, which is crazy. Any thoughts, feedback on that, Joni?
Yeah, this I could see how this could be really useful. And I could also see how we could build it to ask us the questions to identify the culture that we're landing our program in. Like just having a partner in that work would be pretty amazing. Even microcultures, like if you think about Boston, versus Dallas, like those are very different culturally. And maybe they share similar values to some extent, but like imagine how aligned we can make our programs to, and as a human services nerd, like I'm really excited about this option because it allows you to align your programs so closely to the groups that you're serving. Like thinking about things that you have a blind spot to because you are restricted to the culture that you were raised in.
I know we've got a wrap here. I want to just I want to identify two thoughts that are occurring to me. Well, three that are occurring to me as we're wrapping here. One is there's a humility that I think people need to assume, which is that you have to decide whether you want to understand or be understood a lot of times in life. And when you choose to understand the point of view of someone else, you forego your being understood. This is why there's a lot of communication problems, because people don't know which side they're on. Do I want to be, am I listening to create a defense and a rebuttal, or am I listening to understand what that person's saying? In order to do this well, this will only work for people where they actually assume the posture of, I want to actually learn this because I need to see this differently, right? And I'm saying that because a different posture could use this to weaponize, to greenwash, there are a lot of ways that this could be used for harm. And there's not anything we can do about that except to make sure that we're not. And I think that's really important. The second thing I wanted to say is there is an important conversation we're going to start having to have around synthetic data, which is where you have AI create feedback for you that is generated from what it thinks a participant would say, and the actual going to them and asking the questions. And there are, no matter, like, if people want to get mad, they can get mad on either side of that, because it is resource taxing to go and ask these questions. I think a way forward is to run a first analysis on synthetic data and then make sure that you are actually making adjustments and then going to the community. So I feel like, again, this is and not or, and the sequence is almost always what matters. So synthetic data first, and then go to communities and make sure that what it's saying is in alignment. And then the third is humans aren't consistent enough to do this, each step of this, and it has to be sequential. So this is one of those areas where it has to be done in a chain of thought prompt or a workflow. I think this is amazing. I think it's such important work.
As we were talking, I know we talked about ending with a gem, but I actually think an opal flow. So we're going to sign off here, but for those that are wondering what that is, essentially there's sort of like a feedback starter that will, what I think, Tim, is we want that flow to be those first two phases where it builds everything you would need, because then the last two phases are post program presentation and post program like implementation feedback. And so I think we can build options for that. But all it is essentially, think about like a Google form, basically asking the questions we need about your program to then help you get through those first two phases that we talked about here. And then I think the ideal output, Tim, as far as like empowering our end users through the use of Gemini would be, and we can then use sort of like we've got our nonprofit Geminator, which is something we've built at the Human Stack. We can actually apply that methodology and create instructions for you all to create a gem specific to your program. So if nothing else, we can get you 60% of the way there. And then we've got some stopgaps sort of written into the instructions, hopefully, to help with, okay, once you've presented, consider this. Once you've implemented, consider this. Or maybe there's another opal flow for each step that you're in. Because that's the hard part about the phasing. It was meant to be a simplicity one. We did it on purpose, right? Like we did it in live, so you don't know what you're gonna get.
Perfect.
So
yeah.
Super fun. I'm gonna play around with this a little bit. I might post some stuff from the Human Stack, LinkedIn, from Tim's LinkedIn, and just kind of play with the different ways you could then do dashboards. Maybe I'll do some sort of offline recordings that we can post later that just kind of show people from a walkthrough perspective what some of these look like, rather than taking a few more episodes to do it. I think there's sort of like endless ways we can use this, but with next week being our episode 30, I want to do something a little bit special. So first and foremost, I want to say, Joni, thank you so much for the perspective you brought to this conversation, for the expertise and sort of the lived experience of having already had these sort of like missteps, and your vulnerability for sharing that with us, for leading the way in that perspective, and then allowing us to take that lived experience and be like, how can we help others not have that? It's going to happen, but how do we help others sort of like fall forward and fall less often, right? And fall with good intent. And so thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to have you on for more episodes, and genuinely thank you for helping, especially last week when I was like, I don't know what we're gonna do. We'll figure it out. Next week, I would like to plan a little like fun 30 episodes in showdown for Tim and I. So I bet we will see Joni next week. Depending on availability, I want to see some other fun guest stars, hosts. Hopefully we'll bring in, John David, Dan Kershaw, etc. But I want to do, so as you guys might have noticed, my episode titles are amazing. And it's taken me a really long time to figure out how to make sure like the puns work every week. And then Tim just jumps in out of the blue and starts adding puns to his Obscillerator titles. And I was offended. And so I have since decided that we're going to have a pun off for our episode 30. I don't know what exactly that looks like. I'm going to see if like Megan and Karen want to maybe join us live for a little bit. So preview, you
what
guys
is
might
a pun off?
I don't know, because I know what a pun off could be, but the problem is I need to also make it relevant to like Gemini, and like, how do I make it so people could do what we're doing? Because otherwise you and I would go way too. I was up till 5 a.m. building a virtual board of directors. You got to believe I would build the best puninator that you could find, which I might still.
I feel like do that. Let's do that. We'll
maybe
see
next week less about like how to do the stuff we're doing and more about
humans versus the puninator. We'll see who wins. Right?
Yeah. I'm so excited. But yes, join us next week. If you have ideas, send it our way. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you for those of you who are listening after the fact. I know we've had a lot of people really interested, reaching out lately. Continue to do so. You can reach out to any of us using Human Stack contact information. You can also DM any of us on LinkedIn, finding us anywhere, all that good stuff. And excited to see you all next week. Have a wonderful Halloween. We love it. I'm going to wear these earrings all day. I'm so excited. So bye.